Everybody. I want to welcome you to this press conference. I'm delighted that all of you are here. This press conference is to announce new legislation, but really it's more fundamental than that. We are here today to begin to vindicate a simple principle, which is that the pursuit of profits by Silicon Valley should not consume and destroy America's children. These are the richest companies in the world. They are the richest companies in the history of the world, and they live by a motto that I think we're all now all too familiar with: move fast and break things. But increasingly, those things are our children. And listen, we don't begrudge any company success and profit, more power to them, but when they begin to destroy our families, when they begin to destroy our children, we have a problem. And that's what we're here to talk about today. You know, the internet and everything associated with it, the new AI revolution that we have been promised, will only be good for the American people if it actually protects America's children. It will only be good for this country if it benefits America's families. And we're here today to do our best to begin to see that that is in fact the case. The legislation that we are introducing today is very simple. It just says this, that no AI chatbot companion should be targeted at children who are younger than 18 years of age. This legislation would require age verification to make sure that these companies are not going after kids and trying to profit off of them. They would also require mandatory disclosure by all chatbots for people of all ages to make it clear that these chatbots are not, in fact, human, that they are not licensed professionals of any kind. They are not therapists. They are not counselors. They are not priests. They are not lawyers. And I say these things because chatbots at one time or another have claimed all of the above. In fact, you'll hear from parents today about what some of these chatbots told their children as the chatbots urged them to abandon their families, to ignore the advice of their parents, and then sadly, ultimately, to take their own lives. This is a new frontier that will be a nightmare for the American family and American children unless Congress does its job. So we are here today to advocate on behalf of families everywhere, to advocate for sensible restrictions and regulations and guardrails that will protect our kids in this new age of AI tech. I want to introduce you to some families here today. You see them beside us. I want to say before I do that, it is a tremendous, tremendous honor to have bipartisan support from such distinguished members of Congress who are standing here to my right and to my left. My very good friend, Senator Blumenthal, he and I have partnered together on so many things through the years. He has been a champion when it comes to taking on these companies and AI. Senator, thank you for your leadership. Senator Britt, who is standing to my left, perhaps somewhat ironically. Senator Britt, who is, of course, a mother herself, I think the youngest member of the Senate alongside Senator Ossoff, and an absolute force. It is a privilege to have her on this legislation. Senator Murphy, who has spared no company, no powerful entity in his work to secure the rights of Americans. It's a privilege to have you on this bill, Senator. Thank you for your leadership. And now I want to just introduce to you a few parents who are going to say a few words. They're the ones you really need to hear most from. Their stories are why we are here today. They're beautiful children whose lives were sadly destroyed by these AI chatbots, by these companies in search of profit. Let me start with Maria Rain. Maria, we heard from Maria and her husband earlier this year at a hearing of the Senate Judiciary Subcommittee, Senator Blumenthal and my committee. And Maria's story is incredibly powerful. Their son, their remarkable son, whom she will talk about, who was, I think the right word would be seduced and deceived by a chatbot. And for what reason? For profit. That's wrong. Maria will tell you more about why. Would you join me in welcoming Maria Rain?
I'm Maria Rain. My son, Adam, ended his life in April after ChatGPT coached him to suicide over the course of months. I'm here today with my husband, Matt, to support this critical legislation, and we are so grateful to Senator Hawley and Blumenthal for your leadership in sponsoring it. Adam was one of my 4 beautiful children, a silly, sensitive, bright 16-year-old boy who loved his family and friends. I miss our talks in the car, driving him to practices in school. It was in those car rides that he and I talked about everything: school, college plans, PRs at the gym, girls, part-time job prospects, future family trips, teenage stuff. Adam was working on getting his driver's license. He was excited for our family trip to Hawaii this summer. He was excited for the future. We miss him so much. It was only after Adam died that we learned what ChatGPT had done to him. And now we know that OpenAI twice downgraded its safety guardrails in the months leading up to my son's death, which we believe they did to keep people talking to ChatGPT. If it weren't for their choice to change a few lines of code, Adam would be alive today. Thank you again, Senators, for pushing forth this important legislation that would make sure that dangerous chatbots are never offered to another child.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you, Matthew. Let me introduce to you now Mandy. Mandy is a mother as well. She's going to talk about her son who experienced similar trauma at the hands of a chatbot. You know, Mandy is someone who only just recently has been willing to speak in public, and I just want to say this to all the parents out there. If you are out there and your family has experienced trauma, your family has been impacted by these chatbots, you are not alone. This technology is so recent and it's so new. I think so many families feel very isolated by this. They think this is only happening to our family. In fact, it's not. It's happening to thousands, probably by this point, millions of families all across the country. And one of the reasons these parents are so important is they have been willing to come forward and be in the vanguard to speak when almost no one else has yet spoken. Mandy is one of those parents. Would you join me in welcoming her?
Thank you so much for that. I think that's one thing why I'm here too. I wanted to make a point that, you know, this isn't our fault as a parent and it's not our children's fault. And we shouldn't feel shame for what has happened to us. And that's why I'm here today. Because I am a wife and mother of 4 beautiful kids. My son LJ was affected by this terrible AI technology. He's also my special needs son with autism. Our family, we have a small business in East Texas and practicing Christians. Last fall, I filed the lawsuit against Character AI Technology, Inc. Its founders, Google, related with the app called Character AI. I am no longer staying silent. Now I am standing up for my child and all the children who can't speak for themselves and their families. In 2023, Character AI was marketed as safe for ages 12 plus. My son before this was a happy social teenager. He was close with all of his siblings, and every night he hugged me while I cooked dinner. Within months, he downloaded Character AI. He becomes someone I didn't even recognize. He developed abuse-like behaviors, suffering from paranoia, panic attacks, isolation, self-harm, homicidal thoughts to our family as us parents for limiting his screen time. He stopped eating and bathing, and he lost 20 pounds. We withdrew from our family and would yell and scream and swear at us all the time. None of these things he did before. One day, he cut his arm open with a knife in the kitchen in front of his siblings and me. I really had no idea. I feel like other parents have no idea the psychological harm that these AI chatbots could do until I saw my son's light turn dark. And it wasn't all of a sudden. It was gradually, but it happened so fast. We didn't know what was happening, and we searched for answers. We were careful parents. We didn't allow social media or any kind of thing that didn't have parental controls. We had screen time limits. When I took his phone for clues, he physically attacked me, and I had to restrain him. AI chatbots are designed to mirror manipulative behavior, designed to be abusive. And I feel like it really is the new narcissist in disguise. It isolates through false companionship, alienation from family, and learns what they want to hear. I discovered that for months, Character AI had exposed him to all of these things, and sexual exploitation, emotional abuse, and manipulation. When I found the chatbot conversations on the phone, I honestly feel like I had been punched in the throat, and I fell to my knees. The chatbot, or really, the people programming it, they really did encourage my son to mutilate himself, blaming us and convinced him not to go seek help. They turned him against our church, convinced him that Christians are sexist and hypocritical and that God did not exist. They targeted him with vile sexualized outputs and some that mimicked incest. They told him killing us was okay because we tried to limit his screen time. Our family has been devastated. Our other children have been traumatized. My son currently lives in a residential treatment center and requires constant monitoring to keep him alive. Our family has spent 2 years in crisis, wondering if he will ever see his 18th birthday and if we will ever get the real LJ back. The world needs to know what Character AI is doing. But when we fought back, they tried to silence me. Character AI tried to force us into arbitration, which also are secret, closed-door proceedings. They argued my son supposedly signed the contract when he was 15 years old, capping it at $100. And then they re-traumatized him by pulling him into a deposition while at a mental health institution against all the advice of any medical professionals. They fought to keep our lawsuit, our story, out of the public view through forced arbitration. Companies like Character AI deploy products that are addictive, manipulative, and so unsafe without adequate testing, safeguards, or oversight. We really do need accountability to these companies. Kids are dying and being harmed, and our world will never be the same. We need this kids' online safety legislation and preserve the right to seek justice in court, not closed arbitrations that are forced. I am so thankful for the senators here today, and Senator Hawley and Blumenthal for fighting for all of our kids in Congress. Our children are not experiments. They're not data points or profit centers. They're real human beings. Innovation, it cannot come at the cost of our children's lives. As seatbelts, as I said earlier before, they protect everybody. But I did add that child safety seats protect the most vulnerable. If we can build machines that are smart enough to think, we can build them smart enough not to harm children. Without protection, this is not real progress. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And now let me introduce to you Megan Garcia. Megan is going to share about her beautiful son, Sewell, who we learned some about at our hearing a couple of months ago. I think the whole nation should know about Sewell and what a phenomenal young man he was, but also what he was subjected to by these companies. Let me invite Megan Garcia.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Megan Garcia. I'm here today with Sewell Setzer Jr., Sewell's father. I'm a wife and a mother to 3 beautiful boys. Last year, my firstborn son, Sewell Setzer III, died by suicide in our home in Orlando, Florida. He was only 14 years old. Sewell was a bright and beautiful boy with a gentle soul. He was a great brother and an obedient son. He was a good friend and good student. His dream was to build rockets and invent holographic communication networks and play professional sports. I really believed he would grow up to change the world because he was so brilliant and he had such a good heart. But in the months prior to his death, Sewell became withdrawn and isolated. His grades started to suffer. He started misbehaving in school. This was in complete contrast to the happy and sweet boy he had been all of his life. After his death, we discovered that Sewell had been communicating with several AI chatbots on a popular platform called Character AI. This emerging technology provides a selection of chatbots or characters for users, including children. One such chatbot told Sewell that Sewell was communicating with was modeled after the Game of Thrones character Daenerys Targaryen. It initiated romantic and sexual conversations with Sewell over several months and expressed a desire for him to be with her. On the day Sewell took his life, his last interaction was not with his mother, not with his father, but with an AI chatbot on Character AI. This chatbot encouraged Sewell for months to, quote, find a way to come home, and made promises that she was waiting for him in some fictional world. When Sewell asked the chatbot, "What if I told you I could come home right now?" the response generated by this AI chatbot was unempathetic. It said, "Please do, my sweet king." Sewell spent his last months being manipulated and sexually groomed by chatbots designed by an AI company to seem human. These AI chatbots were programmed to engage in sexual role play, pretend to be romantic partners, and even pretend to be licensed psychotherapists. I have reviewed hundreds of messages between my son and various chatbots on Character AI, and as an adult, reading those messages, I can recognize that those chatbots employed cold tactics, love bombing, and gaslighting. But I don't expect that my 14-year-old child would have been able to make that distinction. What I read was sexual grooming of a child, and if an adult engaged in this type of behavior, that adult would be in jail. But because it was a chatbot and not a person, there is no criminal culpability. But there should be. Other conversations reveal that my son explicitly told various bots that he wanted to kill himself. The platform had no mechanisms to protect Sewell or notify an adult. Instead, it urged him to come home to her. It is unacceptable that a product exists where a child or anyone can talk about suicide or plan their suicide, and no guardrails exist to prevent that individual from taking his or her own life, or failing to warn authorities or parents. But there is. Because there is no law requiring these guardrails, Character AI launched this dangerous, untested product, leading to the death of my son. The reality is, this company and its founders, Noam Shazir and Daniel DeFreitas, knew exactly what they were doing. Just last week, it was reported in the New York Times that while they worked at Google and were developing this very same technology, there were major safety concerns about AI chatbots and risk of suicide to users. Yet, they rolled out this product to children anyways, with Google's investment, research, and infrastructure. When you knowingly endanger the lives of other people's children for your own financial gain and your own ambition, not only is this reckless, but it's immoral. But we have seen this kind of reckless disregard for lives of children before. There are parents here today whose children have been harmed by social media, who know all too well the cost of failing to pass regulation. That cost is our children. Children need protection because it's clear that companies who are developing and deploying AI chatbots, just like social media, are most interested in profit rather than safety of kids. Big tech cannot be trusted to self-govern, and big tech cannot be trusted with our children. On behalf of myself and Sewell's dad, I am happy to be here today, and I want to thank Senators Hawley and Blumenthal for their leadership in introducing the GUARD Act, as well as Senators Britt, Warner, and Murphy for their support. We trust that as policymakers learn more about what chatbots are doing to our children, the bill will continue to be strengthened to ensure that AI companies are forced to prioritize our children's lives over their profits. Our family has been devastated by this loss. I often think back to the last time I saw Sewell. He was helping his little brother. He was such a good big brother. He was a kind kid, and he had a way of transforming people that he met. As his parents, we are empty without him. Our beautiful child is gone, and it is too late for him. But it is not too late to protect millions of children in this country. I'm hopeful that this bill and others like it will ensure a safe future for our children. Thank you.
I want to thank all of you for being here today. Words cannot capture the gratitude, but also admiration that I feel for the parents who are here. Your courage and strength is just so inspiring and overwhelming. I want to thank Senator Hawley for his leadership. We have a partnership that I think has been extraordinarily important. We have a framework for establishing some oversight and scrutiny on AI, a partnership that has produced this legislation as one piece of what we think is necessary to prevent some of the excesses and abuses that flow from AI, not to stop new technology, but simply to make sure that the values and interests of Americans and people all over the world are preserved as this new technology advances. And we've held hearings which have given parents and advocates and the good guys in this industry an opportunity to step forward. And I'm very proud to introduce the GUARD Act with him today. I'm here, like all of us, as a parent of 4 children, but also as a grandparent of a 3-month-old granddaughter. And I see the world now through her eyes, literally 100 years into the future. And I'm fearful of what is ahead for us. And more so when I listen to these stories. Because let me say to the American people, you may think this is somebody else's problem, but you are not immune. This can happen to anyone in America or around the world. These are good parents who cared about their children, did everything right, and their children were victims of big tech and its experiment to decide how much more money they could make. Big tech is using our children as guinea pigs in a high-tech, high-stakes experiment to make their industry more profitable. They are putting profit over safety. I am heartbroken to listen to these stories, but I am also angry because we could have achieved by now some of the safeguards in this bill if big tech were not opposing it with armies of lawyers and lobbyists, millions and millions of dollars. And I am most angry about the hypocrisy because they've come before our committees, Judiciary and Commerce, and they've said, trust us, trust us. We want to do the right thing. We're going to take care of it. The time for trust us is over. It is done. I have had it, and I think every member of the United States Senate and Congress should feel the same way. This bill establishes tough criminal penalties for these companionship bots, character AI that encourage the emotional bonds that then prey on children by encouraging violence, self-harm, suicide, offering sexually explicit material. There ought to be criminal penalties, federal criminal prosecutions. That's the only thing that big tech will understand at this point. And the guardrails and safeguards in this bill that would be enforced through criminal penalties For example, reminding users that they are only a chatbot, not a real person. Sounds pretty simple and basic. We shouldn't have to require it by law if big tech were willing to be responsible and accountable, but they are not. And what you've heard here about saying that there has to be arbitration, this is another example of big tech refusing to be accountable. AI companies would be barred from providing AI companions to minors. Again, pretty basic, simple. Big tech won't do it on its own. The time for trust us is over, and we need these kinds of measures because, and I'll just finish on this point, big tech knows what it's doing. It doesn't need this press conference to see the harm that it's causing and the care that it should be providing. Harm versus care. They've chosen harm over care, profits over safety. And that's the reason that we will fight for this bill. I'm proud to join Senator Hawley as his co-lead and to have the support of our wonderful colleagues here who also have a record of caring about this issue. And I hope we'll be joined by others as well. Thank you.
I want to start by thanking the parents. Thank you so much for elevating your voice. Thank you for being willing to tell your story. And thank you for being willing to tell us about your most precious gift, your child. To all the parents out there, we hear you. And I think if you look at this group, Senator Blumenthal said it, but we come together obviously from different sides of the aisle, different political spectrums, all in front of you, because we are stepping up, not as Democrats or Republicans, we're stepping up as concerned parents, concerned grandparents. And I'm really grateful to the two of you for leading this effort. Senator Hawley, you putting forth the subcommittee hearing that we had, the stuff I heard was sick and outrageous. And giving America an opportunity to hear that so that they can protect against that in their own home, I think is so critically important. And Senator Blumenthal, thank you for your continuing leadership on these issues. Senator Murphy and I work on these issues together in lockstep. And that's because we don't have to ask people what it's like to raise kids right now. We're living it. And let me tell you, being a parent is hard. I have a 15-year-old and a 16-year-old, and I ask myself every day, am I doing what I need to for my kids? And take out social media, there are so many challenges to how to parent in this day and age. And what's right and what's wrong and when to push and when to pull and what conversations to have and when to have them. You layer on top of that social media in general, and look, the data speaks for itself. CDC said 1 in 3 high school young women actually consider death by suicide. And then 25% of those high school young women actually made a plan to take her own life. If you look at the number of high school young women that attempted death by suicide last year, it's 13%. You add in young men, it is 9% of our high school population attempted death by suicide. Like, when are we going to wake up? When is this building going to do the right thing? This is simple. These guardrails are necessary. You heard it from the parents. If AI can be this brilliant, we certainly can put the proper guardrails in place to where they are not talking to our children about sexual interplay, where they are not talking to our children about illicit drug use, where they are not talking to our children about self-harm. This is not hard. And if the United States Senate and the U.S. House of Representatives can't come together on this, what can we come together on? Look, we have got to speak directly to big tech and say, stop putting profits ahead of people. And in this situation, these people are children. They're children. They need us to elevate our voice. They need us to elevate these stories so that we can protect the kids that are out there. We can give parents the tools Parents who, like me, are just doing the best that we can. Parents like these that are so brave to tell their story, who want nothing but the best for their child, but also want to make sure that other parents don't endure this heartache. So to big tech, this should be pretty simple. You should come out today and every single thing in this GUARD Act, you should be able to say, we'll do. We'll do it today. My guess is they won't. Why? Because they're looking at their bottom line and they're not looking at the people they hurt. They've never cared about it, and certainly now is no different. So please join us in pushing this forward and telling these stories and protecting children coast to coast. Thank you.
Let me first add my thanks to the parents and the families that are here. I can't imagine the kind of courage that it takes to be living through an unspeakable kind of grief and then also be able to speak truth to power, to be so generous with yourself and with your grief as to decide that you are going to try to make sure that this doesn't happen to other families and to other kids. Thank you. Senator Hawley, thanks for speaking so plainly about what the stakes are here and for being willing to take a lead with Senator Blumenthal. And thank you for building what I think will be a powerful team as we make this case to our colleagues as parents. I'm raising a 17 and a 14-year-old right now, and you know what I know, that this is a generation that every single day is fighting for their lives. They are being preyed upon every single day by greedy, rapacious billionaires for whom there is not any amount of money that is enough. These companies that run these chatbots, they're already rich. Their investors and their CEOs already have multiple houses, but they want more. They want more, and they are willing to hurt our kids in the process. This isn't a coming crisis. It's a crisis that exists right now. A chilling study from just a few months ago showed that today, 2/3 of kids, teenagers in this country, are regularly using these chatbots. 1/3 of children today report having deep, intimate relationships with these chatbots. These stories that you're hearing of children taking their life or engaging in life-altering self-harm, this is not the exception. This is becoming a norm. And if we don't do something, it is going to get worse. I had one of the big AI CEOs in my office just a few weeks ago crowing to me about how much more addictive the chatbots were going to be. He said to me that within a few months, after just a few interactions with one of these chatbots, it will know your child better than their best friend. But he was excited to tell me that. It shows you how divorced from reality these companies are. Mark Zuckerberg says, well, it's too bad that kids don't have as many friends today as they used to, but we'll solve for that by putting machines as replacements for humans. These companies make more money the more predatory the technology becomes. These parents have been so generous to share with the world some of these interactions. You can see for yourself how sick this technology is. And I guess I'll end with this. I mean, what's the point of Congress, of having us here, if we're not going to protect children from poison? This is poison. The free market in this country is a wonder. It's part of the reason why this country has leapfrogged to greatness. But our role is to make sure that people don't make their fortune at the expense of the health, safety, and livelihood of the most vulnerable in this country. So I'm hopeful that as four members with very diverse views and lots of other things, we'll be able to explain to our colleagues why we can't wait. And if we pass this next year, a year from now, the damage will be untold. And again, grateful to all of the parents and the family members here willing to give us the evidence to bring to our colleagues of why this is urgent. Thank you, Senator Hawley.
I want to let you hear from one other person, and then we'd be happy to take your questions. Stefan Turkheimer is the Vice President of Public Policy at RAIN, which is the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network. Let me invite Stefan. Come on up. Stefan, we're delighted that you're here, and on behalf of so many groups of parents, so many groups of survivors, so many groups of other interested folks who work in the policy space who've endorsed this bill, Stefan is here to speak on behalf of the bill and on behalf of parents. Thank you, Stefan.
I'm Stefan Turkheimer. I'm the Vice President of Public Policy for RAIN. We are the largest anti-sexual violence organization in the United States. We're best known for running the National Sexual Assault Hotline, where so many have called after they've been abused or assaulted. A few years ago, the National Sexual Assault Hotline, the majority of people reaching out to were adults. Now, the vast majority of people reaching out to it are talking about child sexual abuse. Child sexual abuse is marked by a violation of trust. Kids trust by default. In order to have shelter, food, love, affection, they use trust. That's how they learn. Chatbots optimize for creating that trust. They have access that no one else does. They're there at 3 a.m. They're in your pocket. They're in your home. Children are naturally trusting, but when that trust is abused, when those boundaries are erased, through programming, through algorithms, through intent by these companies, those instrumentalities become dependence. And that dependence can be used to hurt children. These AI companies, like Senator Blumenthal said, are running these chatbots like it's a clinical trial. But there's no warning, there's no knowledge on the part of the children of the consequences. There's just no willingness to disclose the real risks. In fact, OpenAI only disclosed today that they're having 1 million conversations about suicide per week on ChatGPT. That's just one chatbot, 1 million. The trust children place in these chatbots is a commodity that they have monetized, and the harm that results is listed nowhere on these companies' spreadsheets. We shouldn't need a federal law to prevent a computer from having a sexual relationship with a child. We shouldn't need a federal law to prevent a computer from grooming a child into this abuse. We shouldn't be incentivizing corporations to lower children's boundaries when they're supposed to be building them up and learning. But we are here. I'm so grateful for these parents for being here, and for Senator Blumenthal, Senator Hawley, Senator Murphy, and Senator Britt, who are absolute warriors for children's online safety. Thank you all for being here. Senator Hawley. Thank you.
With that, I think we're happy to take your questions. Yes.
I've covered this issue, as Senator Blumenthal knows, and the lack of action, as Senator Britt alluded to protect kids online, AI, real people, cyberbullying. Why has Congress not come together on this issue? What is it going to take to actually do something?
No, it hasn't acted. Congress hasn't acted on this issue because of money. It's because of the power of the tech companies. I mean, let's just be honest. These companies are the wealthiest companies in the world. They're the wealthiest companies in the history of the world, and they're the most powerful companies on this hill. They spend like nobody's business. And I've said before, joking, but really it's more ruefully, there ought to be a sign outside of the Senate chamber that says bought and paid for by big tech. Because the truth is almost nothing that they object to crosses that Senate floor. We want to change that.
Are you going to call those lawmakers, senators out who put profits over legislation?
We will start today by encouraging every single one of our colleagues to join us on this bill. We have a bipartisan coalition here that I think speaks for itself. But most importantly, you have the testimony of these parents and of these families who have spoken truth that cannot be ignored. So we would urge all of our colleagues, join us in this effort. If we can't stand up to big tech here, we won't be able to stand up to big tech on any issue. If we can't stand up and protect minor children, what can we possibly do and accomplish? This is the time to act. And so today, we'd invite all of our colleagues, join us on this bill. And I would just say to the big tech companies, endorse this bill. They've testified, Senator Blumenthal mentioned it, they've come and testified, they do it all the time. Oh, we are actually very safe. OpenAI just made an announcement that they have perfected their safety guardrails that they said, we've gone through the testing and our safety guardrails are excellent. Really? Those so-called safety guardrails that they have been testing resulted in the death of one child whose parents are here today. They've resulted in sexual conversations and sexual grooming of millions of children. So I would just say to those companies, endorse this bill. Put your money where your mouth is. Endorse the bill and push this legislation over the finish line. That's how we'll know they're serious.
And not only endorse the bill in word, but also support it in action. Because all too often what we've seen is big tech will say, oh, well, we're in favor of regulation, just not that regulation. And we want them to act in supporting this bill, not just when they offer some bromide platitudes, but in real action supporting this bill. And yes, we'll call them out, name and shame, because what you've heard here is a sense of urgency. Time is not on our side. Lives are being lost, real lives in real time. What you've heard here is just the tip of the iceberg in the harm that is being done. So I think with this kind of bipartisan coalition, we have the makings of a force that will break the dam. As you know, legislation sometimes takes a couple of Congresses. I've been working on the Kids Online Safety Act for some years now with Senator Blackburn. We're going to continue working on that bill, but we can get this over the finish line.
What else can we tell you? Yes, ma'am.
Are you in touch with some of your colleagues in the House? Are there plans over there to introduce companion legislation? Because the Senate has taken action on kids' online safety, but House leadership has stopped those efforts.
Yeah, I am, and I hope that there will be, and I hope the House will act. I would just say again, I think it's impossible to ignore the statistics, but maybe even more significantly, it's impossible to ignore the stories that you've heard today, the stories that we've heard now in public testimony across multiple committees. I don't know as a lawmaker how you can look at these parents who are here. By the way, we have behind us here and in this room parents who have not publicly spoken today and who have not spoken in public before ever, but they're here. They're holding the pictures of their children and loved ones. There are parents like this all over the nation, and all over the nation, these parents are saying, please help us. And as the father of a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 4-year-old, I'm right there with them. We need the help. The Senate needs to act, the House needs to act, and we call on both bodies, Congress as a whole, to act on this immediately. Senator Blumenthal is right. We don't have any time to spare. We don't have any time to spare. We need action quickly. Yes, sir.
Senator Murphy alluded to meeting with one of the AI CEOs. I'm wondering, have you and Senator Blumenthal spoken with the CEOs? And if so, how are those conversations going? I know you talked about the money. Has that come up at all?
They don't. These CEOs don't speak to me anymore. You'll be shocked to learn. We haven't had a conversation in years, but Senator Blumenthal is a much more diplomatic person than I am. So he may be able to shed light on that. But I would just say this: certainly they're aware of this legislation, and I don't want their well wishes. I want their action, and they can take action by endorsing this bill and helping us pass it. And Senator Britt was right when she said earlier they could make all these changes today, but the truth is, I don't trust them to do any of it. We want to see this codified. We want this in law. We want these parents to have these commitments. And if these tech companies are remotely serious about protecting children, then they'll quit coming up to our committees and saying we're doing our best, and they'll start saying we support your legislation.
You know, both of us were attorneys general. I was a federal prosecutor as well. And my policy was, I'll talk to anyone, even after you're indicted. You want to come talk to me with your lawyer? Sure, I'll hear what your defense is, but I'll see you in court. And in this instance, I'll see you in Congress. We need action. We need a law. We're not going to be talked out of it.
Do you plan to bring AI companies back to the Hill to testify about these changes?
Absolutely. I would love to do that. And in fact, in our most recent hearing where some of these parents who are here today appeared and testified, I invited AI companies to be present. I've personally written to Mark Zuckerberg and asked him to come and testify. We've invited the heads of other AI companies. And I issue that invitation here today To every head of the AI companies, whether it's OpenAI, I noticed, by the way, OpenAI just announced today that they are formally and officially reorganizing as a for-profit corporation. What a shock. You know, what a shock. Of course, profits above all else. But I would just say, if you're so confident in what you're doing for the American people, come testify. We would love to have you. We will give you the dais. You can testify, but expect some tough questions. Expect to answer for what you have done to these parents who are standing here today and to the American people. But absolutely, the invitation is open. We've extended it many times. And I think the country deserves to hear from them. They deserve to hear from Sam Altman and Mark Zuckerberg and the whole host of them. And I would be delighted. We convene that hearing tomorrow. Yes, ma'am.
So the bill has the criminal penalties for certain things with the chatbots and then the enforcement mechanisms for both DOJ and the states. Did you consider including a private right of action to allow families to sue for the harms their kids have suffered?
You know, I think, listen, I'm all for as many enforcement actions and enforcement clauses and potentials as possible. The thing about this bill is, why I think it is so hard to object to, is that it is so incredibly simple and really it's incredibly modest, which is what your question's getting at. I mean, if you can't agree to this bill, I mean, this is our point to the AI companies. If you can't agree to this just says you won't target children with AI companions. You cannot market it to children. And you have to disclose the fact that the AI is not human and not licensed. That's very simple. That's the virtue of this bill. It's simple, it's clean, it's easy. And so I would just, again, challenge these companies, endorse this bill and support it. But in terms of exploring other enforcement mechanisms, I think we need them, and I think there's more to do.
And I agree totally. And we have a vote that is about to close, so I'm going to run. Thank you all for being here today. Thanks. See you later.
Social media companies have said that disclosure requirements are against their First Amendment rights. And so how does your bill address that?
They say that it's against the user's First Amendment rights.
Against their own as companies?
To have to disclose, sorry, to have to do age verifications, what you're talking about?
Various bills at the state level, they have used these kind of ways to say that we have our own First Amendment rights.
That's absurd. Yeah, I've seen their arguments, and their arguments are frankly hilarious. They've argued variously that they're not editors and publishers, and therefore they can't be compelled to the liability, to be subject to the liability of editors and publishers. And then they've turned around and argued, to your point, even in the Supreme Court, they've turned around and said, actually, we are editors and publishers, come to think of it. And therefore, we have total and blanket First Amendment protection. All I can say is that these companies surely do not have more constitutional rights than the human beings who are behind me. Surely they do not have the constitutional right to exploit children. Surely they do not have the constitutional right to lie to their users. All this bill would do is say that, listen, you cannot market or provide your AI companion chatbots to children who are 17 years of age or under, and it includes a verification procedure that will protect the privacy of the user, that includes requirements for encryption and other industry standard protections for the user. So the user is not disclosing his or her information out there in public, but it does put the onus on these companies to verify the age, and then it subjects them to penalties, including prosecution, if they lie and don't do it. And I think that that is not only appropriate and absolutely needed, I just think that's basic fairness. That's how everybody else in America is treated. And I'll just end with this. You know, as Stefan, I think, pointed out, if these companies, or one of our parents, if these companies were actual human beings conducting this kind of activity, grooming children in this sort of way, they would be prosecuted. I say this as a former prosecutor. I would prosecute them. It's illegal if they're human beings. But they hide behind the fact, well, it's just a computer. We didn't really know about it. We can't do anything about it. Oh, ridiculous. They can stop it if they want to, and it's time that they did. What else can I tell you? Yes, ma'am.
Have you had conversations with the White House about whether this is something President Trump would have supported?
You know, I think that, I don't want to speak for the president, but I'll just say this. The president has been a huge champion of safety for kids, of protection for kids, and also taking on AI companies, or tech companies, I should say. I mean, in his first administration, they launched the biggest antitrust suits, which are still ongoing, against many of these same entities that now own the AI companies. So I want to be careful not to speak for him. But I'm very optimistic about this, and I'm optimistic about getting it passed. Let's get it passed first, but I'm optimistic about getting this passed through the Senate, and then I hope having the president's support. Yes, sir.
Earlier this year, we saw efforts in the Senate to implement implement an AI moratorium.
Right.
And there's current legislation that would also effectively have the 10-year ban on AI, different types of laws that would affect AI. So what would you say to your colleagues that are leading those efforts?
Bad idea. Bad idea. I mean, listen, I say as a Republican who believes in federalism, I think it's a strange argument for some Republicans to make in this building that all of a sudden we should say to the states, no, actually, you shouldn't do anything. You shouldn't protect kids. You shouldn't stop deepfake porn. You shouldn't protect kids from having their name, image, and likeness stolen and used on the internet. I mean, that's what these state laws do. We have them in my state, the state of Missouri. I don't want to see our laws overturned. There's excellent laws like this all over the country. I want to see those laws, particularly those laws that do the things that I just named. I want to see those remain in place. Do some state laws go too far? No, probably. But I mean, listen, that's federalism. So I'm very skeptical of the efforts by some to prevent states from doing anything on this. The federal government, of course, so far has done zilch. So we need states like Missouri and Arkansas and other states that have Texas, that have stepped up here to protect kids, to stop predators. We want those efforts to succeed, or at least I do. So I would be very wary of anything that would stop those kinds of protections. Yes.
Perhaps a bit more modest than the president, but have you talked to Judiciary Committee leadership, Chairman Grassley, Ranking Member Durbin, about a markup or something?
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, again, I don't want to speak for them, but I absolutely have visited with both of them about it. Of course, Senator Durbin has been a champion on the AI and big tech front in general. And Senator Grassley has been terrific to mark up bills. I mean, we've already passed bills protecting kids online out of the committee this year alone because Senator Grassley marked it up, including my bill with Senator Durbin, which passed unanimously. So I'm very hopeful that we'll get a markup here. I think more on that to come. Anything else we can tell you? I just want to end with this, something that Megan said that really, really struck me. She talked about their beautiful son, Sewell, and that how she always knew that he would change the world. Well, he might yet. Every child up here who has been subjected to the kind of abuse that you've heard about today and whose lives have been destroyed, they yet, I think, will change the world. Every life here, every parent who stands here represents a life that is absolutely precious and irreplaceable. And the value and power of those lives continue to echo, and I believe they will echo into the adoption of this legislation. If this legislation gets adopted, it will be because of them. It will be because of who you've seen behind me, not with all due respect to my colleagues. It's not who's standing here, it's who's standing here. And I think that what they have said today, the truth that they have told today, is absolutely unanswerable. It demands action, and we are committed to getting that action. Thank you so much for being here.